Welcome to the Software Showcase. I am Mark Stedman, Vice President of Information Technology, and joining me in the studio today, as always, is Glenn Oliver, our Team Project Manager and all-around great guy. Glenn, it is great to see you.
It is great to be seen.
And, we often find ourselves saying, it's been a while since I've last seen you, and unfortunately, we're going to say that again because it's been some months since we've done one.
We like saying it so much, we space these out as far as we can.
Yeah, it's the best we can do. Well, Glenn, I'm excited to be with you today to talk a little bit about our recently released AI guidelines, which will, I hope, help inform our staff and the people who work with WA, our volunteers and whatnot, about ways that they can engage with AI to help improve their work, how the kinds of things that they're doing, make them more efficient and all those good things. And I think it's really timely because, AI is here to stay. It's not going away, kind of like the internet. And I thought it would be helpful for folks to just have kind of a brief overview about where WA is, how we think about the principles of AI and how to best implement those in a way that honors the Lord in our work, honors the Bible translators that we serve, and then also allows us to use the best technology that's out there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something that we encounter every day, whether it's at work or at home, in entertainment, all of that kind of stuff. It's already embedded. And so this is our opportunity to kind of realign and say, well, how is this important to AI Bible translation?
Yeah. So by now, you should have received the document. If you haven't, feel free to reach out to us. We can send that to you again. And I'll be the first to admit, it's about 25 pages long. It's pretty long. And that's probably a long read. I was gratified to have some emails back from folks who said, I read every word of it. And I thought, I really appreciate that because our AI task force and then our executive team, as well as yourself and Dan Paris and I all work together to put this document together. And the document carries the full weight of the executive team approval. So every division head has reviewed, and Steve as well, has reviewed and approved this document and helped us shape it to fit their work and to be able to tackle this issue.
Yep. And this is meant to not only clarify, but also to be a guide along with that experience of reading it. It's your responsibility, obviously, to read that, to not only read the main section there, but also the individual section that applies to your department. But we thought we'd have a little bit of fun and be able to maybe put some scenarios in front of you to help you quickly understand and apply that.
Yeah. So the first thing is you don't necessarily have to read the whole document. The head of the document has about a half a dozen pages that talks in general purposes about the ways that we think AI can be used well, lays out some principles and ideas, and then the second part of the document is broken down by division. So your responsibility is to know about I can do this and I can't do that for your division. You're always, of course, welcome to read any piece of it, but you don't feel like you need to memorize the whole thing or be able to repeat verbatim all 25 pages. It's not like that. And if you have any questions, please reach out to your manager, please reach out to your division head, or even reach out to us on the IT team, and we'd be happy to meet with you and chat through what you're trying to work on and figure out the best way to do that. So Glenn, why don't we dive in and talk a little bit about some of the core principles. We're not going to go over the whole document. We want to keep this relatively short and respect your time. But the main guiding principle, and we actually set this over a year ago, is that Wycliffe Associates remains fully committed to church-owned Bible translation. Full stop. And what that means is if the church owns Bible translation, we cannot simply put artificial intelligence in the driver's seat of Bible translation. That is an inviolable rule. That's hard and fast. We're not going to simply stick a Bible in the magic AI machine and get a different Bible out in another language, all with AI. Number one, it's not possible. And number two, we're not going to do that because we believe that God speaks through his people, works through his translators to be able to do Bible translation with the aid of the Holy Spirit. And we never want to circumvent that process.
Right. And that's a very specific application, but you're also going to see that throughout the documentation in almost every instance where AI may assist, but the human, you, are always responsible for vetting that information or the outcome of that to determine whether that is correct, if that's something that you want to push forward.
That's right. And so you may be thinking to yourself, well, I'm not a Bible translator, so I can just do whatever. Well, no, because in the same way that we believe that God works through his people and, the voice of the Holy Spirit influences and guides Bible translators, we also want you to use your wisdom, your discernment as a staff member or a volunteer or somebody who helps out with WA. we believe that you are called here. You are here for a reason. You are walking with the Lord, and we want you to use your wisdom, your knowledge, your discernment. And AI can augment that, but it can't replace that. We don't ever want to see that be replaced, even if you're not a Bible translator. So keep that in mind. You, as the person, are ultimately responsible for the output, and anything that you generate, edit, update, tweak, tune, or whatever you're using these tools, that's great. We don't want to stop that, but you need to then fully review and make sure, yeah, that's what I meant to say, and that aligns with everything else I know about that particular situation. I'm not just generating something up and mailing it off to somebody and being like, yeah, that's fine. Any thoughts on that?
No, that's essentially how I intend to use that, whether I'm doing research or whether I'm drafting content or changing existing, emails to say, hey, could you kind of check this grammar-wise? And it will offer suggestions.
Yeah.
But I'm in charge of being able to determine if that is the right choice.
Yeah, that's right. Another sort of key principle here is we want to be aware of data security. So we have scripture data, that's important. We have the data about our work, for instance, stuff that's in port. We have finance and donor data. And all of that is what we would consider to be privileged information, right? So we don't just put all of that stuff out on the web. That would be really, really bad. Like if we just put donor data on the web or something like that, that would be terrible. We would never do that. So if you're going to use an AI system, you need to be thinking about data security. The shortcut answer for you to understand is the way we want you to do that first is we want you to stop using free systems. If you're on a free tier of ChatGPT, or if you're on a free or even a personal tier of Claude, we want you to move away from that for your business work. Feel free to use that in your personal life. We want you to move your WA work away from that. And we want you to get a licensed paid plan for ChatGPT or Claude or Microsoft Copilot. And we want you to get that through the IT team by opening up a ticket with Help Desk and saying, after you speak to your manager and that's approved, saying, okay, please get me a license for Claude. Hey, why does that matter, Glenn?
Well, a number of things. First of all, AI is always hungry for more data. So even though I don't intend it, anything I'm giving any of those outside AI engines, it's getting absorbed into that as training data.
Yeah.
And we've seen through the AI task force that sometimes data that will come back to us that has been learned elsewhere. So for example, when we're talking about church-owned Bible translations, we could ask a question about a translation and it will come back with scripture in that language that it knows for another published Bible. And that, of course, is a violation of copyright. So if we were to use that, that would put us in legal trouble. But had we not recognized that and vetted that, that would have become a problem. And so in the same sense, our data then could possibly be used in ways we didn't mean for it to be used.
Yeah. So one of the things that you get by being under our enterprise plans for Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot is we have all those plans set so that all of our data remains private to our organization and cannot be used for further training on the model. So we set that at kind of the enterprise level, and then any of those accounts that you use, you're covered by that. You can't even actually turn that setting off. It's already set that way, so you don't have to worry about doing that for yourself. Another nice benefit is it's also substantially less expensive because we're in a nonprofit program. So instead of paying $20 to $40 a month, depending on the plan you're on, we actually pay maybe like $8 a month for some of those plans. So you'll save money, your data will be more secure, and that will be a win. Talk to your manager and then send Help Desk ticket off, and we'll be happy to get you set up with that. Let's just briefly address what I would call the pervasive baked-in AI that shows up everywhere. So, Glenn, I looked something up on Google because I'm old school and don't want to look it up on ChatGPT. And right up there at the top, there's this AI summary thing. Am I allowed to use that? I didn't pay for that.
Well, you can't turn that off. We're not expecting you to be able to go ahead and do that.
You really can't. Maybe you can, but we're not asking you to do that.
Right. So that stuff that is available there is not necessarily responsibility. And if I may extend that, a different kind of scenario that actually happened to me last week, working with a different company who was using Zoom. And baked into Zoom, of course, is the ability to do transcription or AI summaries.
Right.
And it was my assumption based on the guidelines, I can't participate in that call in the way I have to go back to analog and make notes on the side.
That's right.
Because that wasn't, the Zoom AI wasn't something that we were paying for. But really in that case, then we're okay to use that, but we need to be cognizant of what we're talking about. So I am free to take advantage of those transcripts and whatnot, but I need to be wary of any information that I'm sharing or any topics that I'm sharing that could be problematic.
Yeah, just a little clarification on that. So that's talking about, for instance, the document says if you want to do AI summaries of meetings, you need to do that in Teams, because Teams is what's provided by WA, and it's under our enterprise agreements, and on all your data private and secure. But we don't have that set up for Zoom because we're not a Zoom shop. We don't really have a lot of people using Zoom, and so we don't have like a Zoom corporate account. This is specifically to the question of what if somebody from another ministry or another company sets up a Zoom call with me, they initiate the call, they get the Zoom invite out to me, and they're using Zoom note taking. Is that okay? Yeah, that's okay. You didn't initiate the call, you're just participating in the call. And like Glenn mentioned, just think about what you're talking about. We have one contractor that we've worked with who likes to use a third-party recording for Google Meet. We're going to stop using that because that particular contractor helps out the finance team. It's probably fine because those calls generally don't get into like the details of transactions. It's more like, how are you doing on this project? How are you doing on that project? But I think we're going to tell him, yeah, let's move these calls over to Teams. We'll go ahead and record them in our system, and then we'll send you the summaries and the recordings, and you can have them from our side, so we have protection on that.
What about something like Google Translate?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, Google Translate actually began backing itself with a large language model some time ago. I don't know. It was probably several years ago, honestly.
Way before we realized it.
Way before we realized it. Yeah, remember the days when Google Translate was pretty terrible? It's pretty not terrible these days, at least from what I can tell. I don't speak all these other languages, but you don't get the crazy bad translations anymore. They're much better. That's kind of in that same place. If you're using Google Translate for something to help you write an email or whatever, that's basically fine, but just be thinking about what's in there. If you're putting in, I don't know why you would do this, but if you had like sensitive donor data or finance data, or even potentially like sensitive information about, a translation event or something that's going on where you're just think, yeah, it'd be better if this didn't leak out, then maybe don't use Google Translate for that. I would assume it's probably safe. Google has a lot on the line to not just like leak out whatever translation you just did. But I'd probably shy away from it if it was something that I thought this really needs to remain a secret. If it's just my usual emails to you asking about where we're going to eat lunch, that's probably okay if I want to send you that in another language for some reason.
As you do.
As we do. Literally never. Okay. So Glenn, you had some scenarios you wanted to run through to just help people kind of understand what we're thinking about.
So I think one realistic scenario for a lot of us, at least at this point, is, I've dabbled with, Grok or XAI and Gemini, and these are things that are no longer on the list. So ChatGPT is out. But when I open up...
ChatGPT is not out as long as you're on a paid plan.
Okay. But if I open up my Outlook software, Office 365, I see Copilot everywhere. Is that the Copilot we're talking about? Can I just go ahead and start using that?
Yeah. That's actually a great question, and we probably need to get back to that with a more full answer. So I've had licensed Copilot for a year, which gives you some additional features and stuff. I actually think that the Copilot that's on your WA computer is probably under our enterprise agreement, but I actually need to go and do a little bit more research on that. So let's stick a pin in that and see where we will get back to you with a read on whether free Copilot is okay. I think tentatively it's okay because you're on a WA machine and it's included in your Office 365 license, Microsoft 365 license that you get that's under our enterprise agreement. So I think it's okay, but we need to get back to that.
But I also would encourage you, if you find yourself wanting or using that often anyway, you may be a good candidate for the enterprise level, because that actually will integrate with more of the systems in the Outlook environment where it really becomes useful.
Yeah.
So that's where I might point you. You also made mention of, I think, Claude.
Yeah.
So Claude may not be something that a lot of people have heard in the news, but didn't realize that is something that we are also advocating for in our environment.
Yeah.
What is that? How do I get that?
There's a few big players in the market. OpenAI and Anthropic are sort of the two big ones. Anthropic's product is called Claude. and OpenAI's product is called ChatGPT. I've used both extensively. For a long time, I was sort of a ChatGPT loyalist. You end up with lots and lots of data in there, and it's good. And I think it's fine. I recently transitioned to Claude because of the paid plan agreement that we have here, and have found it actually to be an excellent tool. And in many ways, I've come to actually prefer it over ChatGPT. They both do similar things in similar ways. One area that I feel like Claude is better, although I haven't recently checked this with ChatGPT, we have approved the Microsoft 365 connector for Claude. So if you get a Claude account with us, we can show you how to basically link it to your Microsoft 365 world, which is your mail and your Teams and things like that. And it does an excellent job of helping me with things. So a common scenario will be, I know we talked about this in like 2015, but I can't remember the details and I can't find the document that I literally was doing this the other day. And, pointing Claude at it and was like, look, here's what I'm looking for. It's about this topic. Find me the stuff, pull me up those emails, and grab the documents that were about that. And I hate to admit how good it is. It's really good. Like, it found all the original PDFs that I had gotten from previous administrations about this particular topic, summarized the stuff we had discussed in our emails, and then also gave me the original emails. That was such a time saver for me. And I was able to answer, okay, yeah, we're actually clear of this issue. I think we're in good shape. And I've got documentation to support that. And Claude is really good at that. Copilot used to be the best at that, and honestly, Claude's a little better in my opinion. Do your own research. Do what you want. If you have a preference, I know you like Copilot more than I do.
I do. It has saved me so much time in that game we called Find That Email.
Yeah, but they're both really good at that, and I always appreciate when I can get something done and get onto a different task and not end up, digging through, trying to find some 10-year-old email in Outlook, which Outlook's really bad at, honestly. Outlook has a really hard time finding like 15-year-old emails. And sometimes that's what you need, 10-year-old emails.
So we've talked a little bit about application of that. Well, let's talk about some more scenarios, how we might use AI. So we also might use AI in terms of, let's say I got an email and, I type it like I speak. And then I realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm sending this to Steve, or maybe I'm sending this to a volunteer. Those are completely different scenarios and maybe how I want the tone of the email to be. Am I okay to use AI to help with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Totally fine. Really useful. Maybe you've never been there, but I've had that moment where I've written an email and I've thought, tone on that email is maybe a little chippy, maybe a little chippier than I mean it to be. Let me get a second read, and Glenn's not around here to like get a sanity check from Glenn, and I'll just run it through Claude or Copilot or whatever, and just say, review this for tone and make sure it's professional, gracious, and appropriate. And it'll be like, yeah, that sentence right there, you should probably get rid of that one so you keep your job. And so
subtract hot and bothered.
Yeah. So those are totally reasonable things. I would again think about like places where you might not want to do that. So if I worked in donor services and a donor wrote to me and was like, I sent you this check on this date, check number, whatever, can you tell me what happened? And I'm going to reply and be like, okay, I check number this, the date, here's your name and address, and this is what happened. That's sort of in that nebulous gray area. That's probably privileged information, and maybe Claude doesn't need to like have all of that detail, like the name and maybe their address and phone number and the check number that they wrote and the amount. Like, it's probably okay, but I probably would shy away. I would just use my spell check on that one. Probably not. Have the grammar get improved. That's me personally, and I figure like let's err on the side of safety for that one.
So let's say I'm having a hard time getting my thoughts together, like writer's block, or just maybe I react better to saying, oh, it's easier if I have something to react to. So what if I want to start an email or a document and just say, hey, here's the information. Can you kind of create a draft 0 for me to react to?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. So that's okay. I think what you really want to avoid is, I've got this task I got to work on. My boss asked me to do this, or it's a project I'm trying to do. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have absolutely no context. And I'm just like, do this for me, Claude. Like, just do this thing. That's probably not great. If you have a task that you're asked to do and you literally have no idea how to do it, maybe the first question is why you've been given a task that you have no idea how to do. However, of course, WA, this happens because we're often doing things that haven't been done before and we have to figure it out. So, so that's fine, but you really should be coming into something with like, I know where I'm going. I have a direction for this. I kind of know like the high points. Hey, help me fill in the missing gaps, right? So this document that you're looking at is one of those things. We worked extensively in, offline, non-AI, working with managers. Okay, how are you using AI? What are pitfalls we should be thinking about? Let's collate all that stuff together. Let's have meetings about that. Let's get all that mass together. Okay, now let's use the writing tools and say, all right, this is what we're trying to do. We're building this document. It's a guideline document for the organization. This is the stuff we've collected. Okay, what are we missing? What are the black holes that we haven't filled in yet that are going to be questions? And how should we structure this so that it's readable and makes sense and is organized and isn't just like a giant pile of words? That's where it can really help. And it's really helpful the longer your document gets, because it's tough to edit a 25-page document yourself and think like, oh, that paragraph would actually be better 4 paragraphs ahead. That's an area where, the bot can really help with that stuff.
So where is it important to consider about maybe citing the fact that AI was contributing to any of these efforts?
Yeah. So you'll note if you read all the way to the bottom of the AI guideline document that we cite the fact that it was written by humans and aided by Claude AI. And the reason is because this is a widely dispersed document. It's a critical document. And so we want people to know the truth, which is this was drafted, edited, written by people, and with augmentation from an AI system. I don't think you need to put that on every email. I have noticed a few people liking to put in their signature that they don't use AI for their emails. Feel free to do that. I think, think about the scope, think about whether it's internal and external, and then also make sure you look at the guidelines. So there are some very specific guidelines, like for the marketing and communications team, about how they can use AI and who ultimately makes the decision if there's a question about that. And so check your divisional section to see what your guidelines are there. If you have a question, talk to your manager, and err on the side of honesty and truth. If you feel like you've written something and maybe people would want to know, yeah, this was actually, some portion of this was written by AI, feel free to disclose it in the header or at the bottom or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. We're moving into a world where it's almost assumed now. Like, it's as assumed as spell check. We don't disclose the fact that we use spell check. We don't necessarily disclose the fact that we were using Grammarly like 6 years ago, back when that was still a thing. But just use your judgment, use your wisdom, and think about, like, if I receive this document, what I want to know, Glenn worked on this with AI. And then, go from there. But of course, check the guidelines and make sure that if you're doing something that's specific and is covered in the guidelines, please follow the guidelines.
So let's use that scenario then. I've read the guidelines. I read the part that we're all supposed to read. I went to my particular division's specific guidelines, but I run across something that I don't think is covered, or is this very specific scenario. It seems like, maybe this should be an exception. What should I do?
Talk to your manager. And if your manager is also like, I don't know, that's a great question. I haven't figured that one out. Check with your division head if that's not your manager. And then feel free to ask. You can send in a help desk ticket. You can email me personally. You can email, Glenn or Dan Paris or whatever. But help desk is probably best because that way we have trackability on it. And it may be that you found a hole where we need to fill that in. And then the next revision of the document, we'll add a little bit of language like we're going to do to clarify what if I'm on a Zoom call that someone else initiated. Like we'll get some of those little things in there so it's a little bit clearer, more explicit, and you don't have to have those questions. But don't hesitate to send questions in.
And you did mention, I think, even in the document that we anticipate that this is a living document.
Right.
We're going to be revisiting this at scheduled times. But even now that we've just first come out, I imagine we're going to run into some opportunities for revision.
Yeah. The initial plan is twice a year to just check in on the document, see if it needs any revision. We may just release a mildly updated one here in the next few weeks just to answer some of the questions that we've gotten.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I hope this has helped.
Yeah, I hope so too. Glenn, it's been really fun to have you in here. So we don't have bullet time this time. This isn't a full software showcase. I will, if you've come this far, congratulations, you win. Come see me. I will make you a fresh, hot cup of coffee as a reward for you getting this far. I will tell you that I'm excited. We are actually going to have some really great software showcases coming out in the next couple of months.
Yep.
We have some exciting products that we're working on for the field operations team and for Bible translation. Really excited to introduce people to Sefer if they haven't heard about that yet. cool system, and we've got some other AI infused things going on. So we hope to be back in the studio soon. We will have our usual panoply of guests and bullet times, and we may even have some previously unseen guests, some new guests who've never been on a software show.
That is very true.
For whom we will absolutely need to have bullet time.
Yep.
And see if we can surface things that even their husbands don't know yet. All right. Well, with that all said, please like and subscribe. It really does help us, and we hope that this has been a helpful video for you. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.